frankly, whether any of it is worth a row of beans. I'm joined by immigration lawyer Paul Turner. Paul, welcome back onto the programme. I wonder, with your legal hat on, whether you're somewhat bemused looking at these debates that are going on in the House of Commons. I mean, ultimately, it seems unlikely to me that a Rishi Sunak government is going to ignore the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg.
Well, I would agree, and they had the opportunity, I think it's been put to Mr Sunak, as to whether he would actually be as bold as to say he's going to ignore any Rule 39 injunctions, and he has, how should we put it, not answered the question directly, but said that he's kicked down the road. Now, that might be the usual Sunak kicking it down the road, as in he's frightened to say one thing or the other. As it stands at the moment, I mean, I don't agree with the bill, as you probably haven't understood during our previous discussions, but the amendment, probably the Conservatives' last best hope at actually getting any flights off the ground. And as we've seen, they've been rejected by Parliament. The amendments I don't agree with would have stripped the ECHR of any ability to stop the flights. The bill itself, as it stands, preserves under Clause 3 the ability for the UK courts to say that the bill is incompatible with human rights, and Clause 4 allows individuals the right to go to Strasbourg and to make their case in Strasbourg. And at present, the UK tends to follow the judgments of the European Court of Human Rights. So it is easy to see, and if one looks at the UNHCR's most recent report, they've said, yes, we've looked at what's gone on, but quite frankly, nothing's changed on the ground in Rwanda. And according to the UNHCR, and we'll be aware of the weight that the Supreme Court put on the UNHCR's finding, they find that the bill as it now stands is still in breach of the UK's international obligations, which doesn't take a genius to work out, would mean that notwithstanding no domestic challenges being possible, that individuals will go to the ECHR, and nothing has changed on the ground in Rwanda, the ECHR are likely to say that removal is unlawful. So in short, the chances of flights taking off before the spring are minimal.
I'd have thought actually the chances of any flights taking off, the chances, Paul, of any flights taking off before the next general election look pretty slim, don't they?
I think that there's a greater chance of Rishi Sunak being voted back as the Prime Minister. That's likely to happen before anybody is removed for Rwanda. And I don't think anyone is going to be removed for Rwanda. And I think the next government are likely to kick this into the long grass where it belongs.
OK, Paul, you couldn't have put it more clearly. We're whistling in the wind. Thank you very much, national organisations. And I'm joined again by Paul Turner, immigration lawyer. Paul, you know, the ECHR, we all know why we signed up to it. It was after the Holocaust, it was post-World War II, and indeed we were very instrumental in setting this thing up as an early warning system. Its critics, myself included, would say that it's been, through activism, extended its role in many other ways. But what would happen? What would happen if a British government just said, you know what, this is in our national interest, we are going to ignore what this court in Strasbourg said? What would actually happen?
Well, what we will be doing is joining a quite elite club of nations that include Russia. They have ignored, I think, 20 interim Rule 39 injunctions, and then they were thrown out. So if we want to be seen on a par with Russia, then that is what we would be. We would become an international pariah. It would also have quite grave impacts, I read, on the Northern Ireland Agreement and the peace that we've seen in Northern Ireland over the last quarter of a century. Now, it may well be that if peace in Northern Ireland is not that important, and I certainly remember growing up, as I'm sure you do, Nigel, in the Troubles when there were bombs going off in Oxford Street. We don't have that anymore, thankfully. And part of that is due to the ECHR. So if one balances peace in the United Kingdom, peace in Northern Ireland developing, and we set that against what is where there's no evidence that actually the new bill, even if it was in force and 200 or 300 100 people were sent to Rwanda, whether that would actually have any deterrent effect. So everyone wants to stop illegal crossing. I want to stop illegal crossings. It's not good for people, and it's certainly not good to put vulnerable people into the hands of criminals. But when we look at it, the government promised that they would carry out and publish a review on safe legal routes within 6 months of the bill coming into force. They have put out the report, and they haven't introduced or suggested any new safe legal routes. And last year there were about 700 people up to September last year relocated under legal routes. And if you put that against the number of people recognised as asylum seekers in the United Kingdom, it was about 37,000, 75% of the people that claimed asylum. So by all means, stop the boat, but you need to have a method whereby people can claim asylum and come to the United Kingdom lawfully. And the government wants to have its cake and eat it.
Well, hang on a second, Paul. Hang on a second, Paul. We've had over 500,000 people claim asylum in the UK since 2017. I mean, it's a huge number, isn't it? So it's not as if we've not been doing our bit on the international stage. I would disagree with you on the role of ECHR in the Northern Ireland peace process. I think the Americans had a bit more to do with that. But this idea that we'd be a pariah state, I mean, we were told actually if we left the European Union we become a pariah state, but we haven't, have we?
Well, that's a political hot cake. No, we haven't become a pariah state. Whether we've received all the benefits that certain politicians advocated is a matter for another discussion, not one for today. But yes, you're right, we haven't become a pariah state. I can still go on holiday to Europe, as I'm sure we all can, though when I arrive they usually laugh at the colour of my passport and ask me more questions. But leading the ECHR, which, as you say, what rightly mentioned, was pretty much drafted by a British barrister after the Second World War. Now, it has incrementally increased, and there's a legitimate conversation to be had about whether it's gone too far. But in respect of Rwanda, we're talking about the protection of people's lives. Now, that's one of the core foundations behind the ECHR. So we're not talking about whether or not people should get 2 pints of milk a week or 3 pints of milk a week, and relying on the ECHR for what would be a spurious argument. We're talking about people's safety.
All right. Paul, as ever, thank you for your legal opinion.